Here you're going to describe the state of the art, but the state of the art focuses on the technologies, but not on the competitors. So there's going to be a separate section that is going to talk about the competitors, so the companies, but here you just talk about the tech. So for example, let's say there's a huge recycling company and they have a certain recycling process. Then in the state of the art, you're going to discuss the recycling process of the competitor, but you're not going to discuss the company in detail. So a good approach to writing this section is to first present what are the current approaches in the industry? What are the current ways of solving the problem? And you should think out of the box. For example, let's say you have a certain AI technology that is creating a certain value. Then you have to ask yourself, what are other companies or customers doing in order to achieve a similar outcome or in order to mitigate the problem? So for example, let's say you're in the second life battery market. This means that you are capturing batteries before they're being thrown away and you're trying to refurbish them or to reuse them in some way. And then there are different ways to look at this, because you can say that, for example, recycling is an alternative, and then you can say recycling is very energy intensive, it's very wasteful, so it's much better to reuse battery before you throw them away, because otherwise you're just going to waste their value and capacity. But on the other side, you can obviously also compare with different approaches of reusing batteries. So you can compare with recycling and reusing batteries at the same time, or different approach. Let's say you're creating a new redox flow battery. Then there are going to be different options for the state of the art, because in general, what you're offering is energy storage. So you can compare yourself to lithium-ion batteries, maybe some type of thermal battery storage, and then also other startups or companies that are also developing different redox flow batteries. So it would be very obvious to just compare yourself to redox flow batteries, but this might be a little bit too narrow, because then the evaluators might think, yes, you're just comparing yourself to redox flow batteries, but what about all the lithium-ion batteries? What about all the thermal energy storage? So you want to be broad enough not to get criticisms from the evaluators here. So just ask yourself, what is the problem that my product is solving, and what are different ways of solving that problem? And then you just list down the top 5 things that come to mind, the top 5 ways of solving the problem. Number 1, this is how you solve the problem. Number 2, let's say these are other startups that are using a very similar approach to you. And then number 3 is something that's a little out of the box. Maybe it's a completely different technology, but it also is used to solve the problem. And then you can see how far you want to go. You don't want to go too far. You don't want to say that I'm selling a computer and other companies are selling pen and paper, and you can also use pen and paper instead of a computer. That's a little bit too far, because clearly it's not the same to use a pen and paper instead of a computer, even though it might solve a similar problem. But if you sell a computer, and then maybe you say, yeah, there's other companies that are also manufacturing smartphones, or they have VR headsets, or they're going to have tablets. So these are a little more comparable. So you want to present a good overview of the state-of-the-art technologies. You can mention company names of competitors, but you don't need to go in detail on the companies. You just talk about the tech. And what is very important here is that you have to highlight how these alternatives are failing to solve the problem. This is very important, because in these applications, the last thing you should write is that these competing approaches are actually doing a great job. We're actually admiring how they're doing this. This is the last thing you should write. You have to present what are the alternatives to solving the problem, and why do they fail to solve the problem? Why are they insufficient? Why are you better? Every single time you mention a state-of-the-art alternative to your product, you have to explain where it fails and why you are better. This is really, really important. So I'm going to say it again. Every time you mention the state-of-the-art competitor, you have to explain why they fail, where they fail, and why you are better. Very important.